So today I want to talk about selling because there's a lot of talk about marketing in our world now, but I think there's not enough talk about selling. And selling is really important, as somebody once said, nothing happens until there's a sale. And so today I want to talk about selling, but not the traditional kind of selling. I want to talk about selling as an authority because more and more now people won't buy simply from salespeople. They'll buy from experts and authorities. So an authority is somebody who has some expertise and is known for their expertise and can help people solve their problems. So I'm going to go through a process today, and it's going to be quite a practical webinar. So I'm actually going to get you to do stuff during the webinar. And where this fits in the overall business process is in one of these four segments. So there are only four ways to boost your business. So if you're in any sort of business, broadly, everything that you do falls into one of these four categories. You either spend time and effort and money getting people to your front door or your virtual front door. So that's how you do lead generation. Then once they're in there, then you sell to them. So you convert them from a potential customer to a customer or a client. You could generate more income by selling them more. In other words, you charge more for whatever they buy. So you upsell them or get them to buy something else. So you bundle something else in there or get them to spend more in that transaction. And you can get them to come back to you over and over again. And today we're really going to be focusing on this area here, which is the selling part of it. How do you get somebody who you already know, so they're not a complete stranger, they're a potential client, but they're not yet convinced to buy from you. And what I'm going to talk about is a process that you can use in any sales scenarios. And the typical sort of sales scenarios are you could be in a sales meeting with somebody, you could be even in an online meeting, and you could do this on your screen. You could be delivering a presentation to a small group where you're you're pitching to a committee, or it could be impromptu where you just bump into somebody, sit down and have a coffee together, or just in a hotel lobby, and you sketch out these ideas on a napkin, and that could be your sales pitch. So I want to talk about that, and I want to give you a process for doing that. Everything we're talking about is solving your customers' or clients' problems. So they're at position A, and you want them to get to some desired position B, and they've got some problem that they have that you're going to help them solve. And it doesn't have to be a negative problem. It could also be a goal that they're aspiring to. So I'm just going to use the word problem here as a generic term, but it doesn't only have to be negative problems. So you're trying to get them from A to B, and what I'm going to talk about today is a process that will help you do that based on your expertise and authority. So let me tell you the story of my kitchen renovation. So I renovated my kitchen 4 years ago. This is not a disaster movie. This is not a disaster story. It actually went quite smoothly. So my kitchen used to look like this. It's still pretty good, but it was my house is a 1990s house, and I had this kitchen with those bricks, which is fine, but it had that bench top which was slightly raised and didn't give me a lot of space, and I ended up with the kitchen like this. So not a huge change, but the oven space got removed, and it's now cupboard space, and I got a nice lot more bench space, and that happened, well, it happened over a series of about 3 months. The actual work took about 3 days, but I had an IKEA kitchen done, and the designer came in and she designed for me how my kitchen would end up looking. So I went from the before to the after, and in the middle there was a little bit of work as well, and a little bit of pain to go through. So there was this bit when the kitchen was actually being renovated, but the sales process tends not to talk about that. And really we're talking about getting from the original position, so where you are at the moment, to a desired outcome, and that's what this process is going to help you do. And in the sales process, certainly in the initial sales process, we don't have to talk too much about what happens in between. But the idea here is you've got a customer or a potential customer with a particular situation, and you're going to help them get to another situation. So what kind of problems are you solving? And broadly, we're going to break them down into 5 areas. So the problems of how much, so people want to increase something or decrease something. There are problems of where, so you want to change where something happens in your customer's life. There are problems of what, so the customer or client wants to do something differently, so it's a something that they want to change. There's a how, so there's some process that you want to help them change or improve or maybe even eliminate. And the last one is a question of who. So this is a question of people. Let me give you an example, and then I'm going to ask you the poll question, broadly, what problems are you solving? And then we'll look at some of the solutions to them. So let me give you an example. So I talk about the leadership and I speak about the future. So when I'm talking to leaders about the future, based on who I'm talking to and what I'm pitching for them and what problems they've got, I could be talking in any one of those 5 categories. So if I'm talking to leaders about how much, it might be that the problem I'm solving is that they want to increase performance, they want to increase productivity, they want to reduce distractions, they want to increase the amount of interaction that they get from their team meetings at meetings. So this is a how much question. If I'm talking to another kind of leader, they might be talking about where. So I quite often talk about the idea of talent everywhere, that now teams are distributed and modern teams get their talent from everywhere. It's not just the people in the office, it could be outsourced providers, it could be that you're part of a global team, it could be that you've got freelancers, it could be that you've got telecommuters who are team members working from home. So you may change where your team's located, and of course that means you have to change certain things in the way that you lead that team. I could be talking about what. So what has changed? What do you need to do differently as a leader now in our fast-changing world? So that's the what. It could also be how. So how do you lead differently? So it's not command and control leadership anymore. It's much more facilitative. It's taking advantage of your team as a team and also individuals in your team as individuals. I could be talking about who. So who are the people who are the leaders in your team? How do you engage with the emerging leaders in your team? How do you engage with the young people in your team to help your leadership? Okay, so I've talked very broadly. I'm giving an example. I hope you understand what I mean by those 5 areas. So how much, where, what, how, and who. So I'm going to go through this process and give you some examples of how to sell when you're solving each of those problems. But before we do that, let's do this. Let me ask you as a poll, and you've only just had a couple of minutes to even understand and grasp these concepts. So it's a little bit unfair, but I'm going to ask you broadly, when you think about the problems that you solve for your clients, what kind of problems are you solving? And I'm saying plural because there may be more than one. So let me launch the poll here, and you can tick just broadly, just from the very short introduction that you've had to this concept, which problems are you solving for your clients? And you can tick more than one here. Okay, good. I see that most people have voted, so I'll leave the voting open for another 5 seconds. Great, thanks everyone. So let's have a look. Okay, so if you look at the results on the screen, so about half those. So the most common is people are solving process problems. So how you do things differently. Interesting. And a lot of people are solving how much problems. Okay, so you're increasing or decreasing something. So not many about where. Interesting. And also, okay, so who's also reasonably low. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. So as we go through these examples, you might find that some of them resonate more with you than the others. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a catalog of ways of sharing sharing with the potential client solutions to these problems, and I'm going to give you them in all these 5 categories, and you can choose which ones you're going to use. So I'd like you to have practice at all of them, so that then when you're speaking to a client or prospective client, you can pick and choose the one that's most relevant for you. Okay, so here's your toolkit, and in a nutshell, what I'm going to suggest to you is that one of the best ways to demonstrate your expertise and authority is to sketch out a quick diagram for them, showing them where they are, where they could be, and then you draw an arrow that shows them the direction that they could take. So it's as simple as that, and it is as simple as drawing. So here's a very simple example. You could sketch out on a whiteboard or a napkin, a bit of paper, two graphs, a graph showing two lines, one which is our projected, let's say, sales, and one which is our target that we're aiming for, and the little red arrow shows the difference between projected and targeted and target. So I've deliberately drawn this as a very rough diagram because that's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to draw rather than create a beautifully constructed presentation slide with that on there, because there's a real power in drawing this in the moment where your potential customer sees their problem in front of their eyes and they see the direction that they could take to solve that problem. And of course, you then have the solution to back it up. So for the rest of today's webinar, I'm going to go through and draw some rough sketches looking at each of these 5 areas. And that's what it is. So people here know that I like to try different things with webinars. So I'm actually going to try drawing on the screen live during the webinar. And we'll see how that works. I've got some pre-prepared for you as well, but I'm also going to show you some rough sketches just to show you how easy it is to do, and even in an online presentation where your client or potential client is remote from you. As an incentive for you to do this during the webinar itself, I would love you to do it in the next 15-20 minutes while I'm talking. Sketch it out yourself, and not just sketch it out, I'm going to ask you to do something with that sketch that you create. So if you go to any time during the rest of the webinar, if you go to askgihan.com, it'll take you to this little bulletin board, and what I'd like you to do, if you get the chance to do it during the webinar, would be fantastic, is draw it, sketch it out on a bit of paper, take a photograph with your smartphone, and then upload it to this website here, askgihan.com. And anyone who uploads it, just as a reward, I'll send you a copy of my audio program, Step Up, which takes this a lot further, which is about building your authority and personal brand as a leader, as a business owner, as a salesperson. So the way it works is, let me just switch over to askgihan.com and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so just coming up on your screen now, if you go to askgihan.com, it comes up to this little bulletin board page like this, and the way for you to upload is very simple. You just double click anywhere on the screen, write your name at the top, and where it says write something, don't write something, just click this little button here which says add an attachment, and that's where you can add your photo, and it'll allow you to upload a photo, and then it'll get uploaded to this page here. Okay, so I'll delete that post. Okay, and so Philippe has been trying this out, and it's got a bit that says add comments. So that's fine. You can delete, you can experiment and delete your own posts if you want to. But as we go through this webinar in the next 15 minutes, please feel free to share your posts up there. Everyone can see them as you're doing them. So when you upload your photos, then they'll be visible to everybody. But that's really useful. That's really why I want you to do this. Okay, and as a thank you and as an incentive, I'll send you a copy of the Step Up program as well. Okay, so let me go through this, and we're just basically what we're going to do is go through these one at a time, and I'm going to go through each of these 5 areas, and I'm going to show you at least one example of a diagram that you can sketch in each one of these 5 areas. Okay, so let's get started. So let's look at how much. So a lot of people said that how much was one of their main things, so they help people with how much. So how do you draw a diagram that shows a change in how much? Okay, so let's see how we go with our little sketching here. Okay, so this is a pretty easy one to do, and let's take an example. In fact, I think I've got somebody here on the line who's an exercise physiologist, and David Beard taught me this. He said that most people, when they do an exercise session, they spend most of their time doing cardio training. I'm just going to say C, although you might write in the word cardio, and less time doing strength training. And if you really want to get fit, and includes things like losing weight, then you should be doing more strength training. So if you have your whole hour of exercise, have more strength training and less cardio training. So David, I may not have said that correctly, so please don't take my health advice, anyone, but that's broadly it. And that's a simple example of where you change how much. So a nice simple example, and it is as simple as that. So I'm not asking you to do anything more sophisticated than doing a diagram like that. Okay, so that's one example. Okay, so let me do another one for you. And the other one is just as another diagram that you might use for exactly the same idea is instead of drawing it as a horizontal block or a line, we have our old friend, the pie chart. Okay, so here's one that I've just drawn for you just to save us a little bit of time in the webinar here. But if I've got my pie chart here, I can say that instead of spending that little amount of time on strength training, what we want to do is increase our strength training and reduce the cardio training. So it might end up something like that. Okay, so that's an example of a nice simple diagram that I've drawn right in front of my prospective client to show them about my point of difference and my expertise. Okay, and they get that. And if, of course, there's more to that than the sale, but they can see that right in front of them. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly stop and just see if there's any questions about this process, because in the next 10 minutes, I'm simply going to do this over and over again for each one of the other five questions as well. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions coming in so far. Kimberly's saying, what's the website where we should add our image? The website is called askgihan.com. Okay, and if you go there, it then jumps to this other page that it jumps to that little bulletin board that I've shown you. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so let me continue. Okay, so this is how the rest of the webinar is going to go. It's simply, I'm just going to go through each of the five sections. We've done one of them now, and we'll move on to the next one, which is about where, and I'll just give you a couple of examples in each of these categories. Okay, so this is where not many people said that where was one of the things that they were changing for their clients, but let me show you a couple of quick examples around that. So where very often applies to maps. So here's one that I prepared earlier because I didn't trust myself to draw a map of Australia live in the webinar. But if I talk about something that's happening in certain regions, I could say everything's happening in Sydney at the moment, but we're now going to move our distribution to Brisbane and to Hobart, and we'll let Perth stay over here. And so we'll have distribution centres in Perth, in all our four cities now, rather than what we used to have, which was just Sydney and Perth. Okay, nice simple example. Again, very simple diagram that I've drawn, but it's very powerful when people see that, oh, that's all it is. And that they see it on a diagram, they see it on a map that you've sketched out in front of them, rather than you're talking about it or something that you've prepared in a lot of detail earlier on a slide. Here's another one. So where it doesn't always have to be about maps. It can also be about something more abstract. So here's an example here. You could say, for example, that you have things at three levels. You have the local level, you have the regional level. I'm just going to use little letters here, and of course you have the global. Okay, so you could say at the moment all we have is local distribution, but what will happen when we implement the new system is that we will have local talking to regional distributors who will also talk to global, and of course global is then going to come back and talk to our local people as well. Okay, so you know that I'm just making up the words that go around it, but you can see how effective that can be, and all you're doing is just drawing a simple sketch. Okay, so that's the first two. So we've done two of these so far. So we've talked about how much and where. The next one is if you're changing what, and there's a whole bunch of ways that you could show the change of what. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples here just to get you thinking. But when you, depending on what you're changing and what you're doing with your prospective clients, there are many, many, many ways that that you could show these as diagrams. So let me show you one simple one. This is an example that I use myself for one of my models, and when I talk about influence and trust, I talk about the fact that you could be working with three levels of people. So the three groups of people you're working with are friends, who are the people who know you, like you, and trust you. So these are your existing customers. They're neighbors who know about you but have never bought from you before, or they're strangers who've never heard about you before. And this applies to marketing. It applies to influence. It applies to, I call this this is my trust model. And I say that when in your community, what you should be doing is trying to get more and more people from strangers to neighbors to friends, and the key factor that gets them there is trust. So you leverage the trust that you have with your friends, who are your existing customers. You build trust with your neighbors, and you invite strangers into your trusted community. And based on that, I can, if I'm selling that, I can then sell. I can ask people to identify where they are and where most of their community is, and how I can move them up, how I can help them move them up that pyramid. Okay, that's a simple example around just drawn around a pyramid. And the idea of a pyramid is that obviously the one at the top is the best, but it's also the smallest. So I say your friends are the smallest group of people, the strangers are most of the people around the world. But if you can leverage the trust with your friends, then those are the best relationships, and those are the most influential in your community. Okay, so I hope you're finding this useful, because I'm just going to go through and keep giving you example after example after example. Here's another one. This one I'm going to actually draw. Here's one I prepared earlier. I use this in a goal setting process where I talk about you can set vague goals or specific goals. You can set easy goals or challenging goals, and I talk about what happens if you set a vague and difficult goal. Then it's easy to give up because it just seems too hard. If you set a vague and an easy goal, you trick yourself into thinking that you've achieved it because it's too easy. And really what I'm saying is you want to set a challenging but specific goal. Okay, so the way I would do this, as you can see here, is I would draw up these quadrants, I would label them, I'd ask the potential client where are most of their goals, and most of them would say, well, generally we've got goals that are specific, but maybe we're not trying hard enough. And I say, well, you probably, those goals are too easy, so it's not motivating, so I'm going to show you how to make your goals more challenging. Or their goals are so vague that life gets in the way and they give up, so I'll show them how to make their goals more specific. Okay, so that's the diagram that I would draw for them, that I would sketch for them when I'm talking about my channeling chaos program. Okay, I want to show you that one specifically because there's something else I want to show you about that. When I show that in a presentation, sometimes the way I do it is not like that, but I will do it using a PowerPoint slide. So you may have even attended a webinar where I've done this, where I talk about what are the best goals, and I do this with a one I prepared myself as a PowerPoint slide. So as I'm talking through the process, little bits of the slide appear. So I think that's good. I think that's good, and some people will like that better, and some people will like the hand-drawn version better, and there's no reason that you can't do both. So in the hand, if you could display a PowerPoint slide like that, and then in the webinar, you could then add your arrows so that in the webinar it looks more dynamic, and you can then combine the prepared slide with your own annotations. Okay, and that's a really powerful technique as well. The idea behind all of this is that we're showing that we've got expertise in the moment to help the clients solve their problems. Okay, 2 more to go. So I'm going to just quickly stop and just check if there are any further questions that have come in. Justice says, what software am I using? I'm simply just using GoToWebinar. So GoToWebinar has all these features built in that allow me to draw on the screen. I'm not sure whether other tools like Zoom and some of the others do that, but certainly GoToWebinar does. Okay, so 2 more to go before we finish. So the next one is process goals. So if you're helping, sorry, not process goals, but you're helping people change a process. So let me show you again. I'll show you just for at the sake of time. I've done the initial diagram to show where people are at the moment, and then when I switch to so here's a process that I want to say to people. Okay, here's your typical process: is you design something, you build it, you test it, and then you sell it. But what about if we changed it? If we change it around, so instead of testing it, you design, build, and sell. And then you do your testing. You ask your customers and clients to do your testing for you. So that, whether this is right or wrong for your business, that's not important. But all you're doing is you're showing how that process can change. Okay, I'll do one more example in the how goals. And again, it's for processes, it's usually a series of something that's linked. So the other example might be that you've got a circular process, so some sort of cycle. And again, so as I'm sketching this out for a client, I might say the typical product life cycle goes through planning, building, selling, reviewing, and planning. What we are recommending now is that the building, we're going to outsource that. So building a product, we're going to outsource that to China, which we haven't done before, but we're going to do that now. Whoops, I lost my slide there. Let me go back to that one. Okay, so this one here is when I started writing China on there. China. Okay, and as you can see, these are very, very simple diagrams. You want to practice them so that you can draw them quickly, but they're not beautiful font, they're not perfect circles, they're not beautifully designed arrows. They're a simple sketch of the client situation and where you can help them move to the next step. Okay, let me do the last one, which is about who goals, which is about people. Okay, so some people did say that they had who goals, but this again wasn't one of the highest priorities in the poll that came up earlier. But I want to give you a couple of examples so that you can work with them if you need to with potential clients. So if you're changing who, let me again show you one that's a very simple example with an organizational chart, an org chart, and you could be talking about how leadership has changed. And it used to be top-down control, but now you more and more want your people to be interacting with you, and you want to be learning from your people. So you want to listen, you want to learn. Okay, and we're not going to add a lot on these diagrams, but you can imagine that in the moment with the potential client, that could be quite powerful because you're talking about how you're going to help them improve their listening skills. You're going to talk about how you can help them improve their learning skills. Okay, nice simple example. Let me give you the last one that I want to share with you is again to do with people. And again, there's a number of different ways that you could, different diagrams you could draw. Here's another simple example, and this example is simply example of you're talking about how your customers talk mostly to the people at retail, but what if your customers could talk directly to the people at the C-suite? So what if your customers could talk directly to the CEOs with complaints or compliments or comments rather than having to go through these multiple different channels where they never know where they're going to be heard? Okay, so you might be offering some sort of customer experience management program, and this could be a simple diagram that explains just in a nutshell exactly what you're going to be doing for your customers, what you're going to be doing for the organization to help their to improve their customer engagement. Okay, let me just stop and just check if there's any questions about any one of those. Whoops, let me go back one slide here. So we've talked about these 5 areas. So we talked about drawing a diagram for any one of those 5 areas. I see a couple of people have uploaded a diagram to the Ask Gihan site. So just you've still got time to do that. I'll leave it open for a bit so that you can do that if you want to. And if you go to askgihan.com, then you can see what people have uploaded. A couple of people have done that already. And let's just jump there now, just before we finish up. Let's just show you what people have shared. Okay, great. So I'm assuming, Philippe, you've said how to add another one. I think you just double-click somewhere else on the page and add another one just there. So there's a couple here, a couple of people have added, and I'll leave it open for a bit just to give you time to do that even after the webinar, and I'll still send you the Step Up program if you do it in the next hour or so after the webinar. So we've come to the end, and let me just to finish off. This is just a really powerful technique to use. It's not slick PowerPoint keynote presentations, but it's just as powerful, and sometimes it's even more powerful than having a beautifully beautifully designed brochure or a beautifully designed PowerPoint presentation. Let me just see if there's any last questions that are coming in before we finish up. Oh, Lauren says, how do we add the pic? So Lauren, when you add your thing, it said there's a thing that says upload a photo. So you have to get the photo available. I presume that what Anne and Philippe did was sketch it on a bit of paper, took a photo with their phone, and then got the photo out of iCloud or Dropbox, and then uploaded it here. Or maybe they did it from their phone. Cecilia says they're said to be visual audio hands-on learners. The group I ignore. Yeah, I never knew what to do. This could be great for hands-on learners. Is that your type? So that whole thing about different learning styles. The research shows that there really isn't much of an impact from different learning styles, but as a presenter, I like to have a variety. So Cecilia, if you're asking about my technique here in presenting by asking you to do work, then absolutely I'm helping people with the kinesthetic or the hands-on learning style. In terms of the message that you're delivering, it's very much designed for the visual part of your prospect, but is also demonstrating that you can show a solution to their problem instantly, starting with nothing except a pen and a pen and a sheet of paper, or a pen and a whiteboard. If you want to know more about this, then if you really like this idea of drawing your messages and selling through drawing pictures, then I highly recommend the book The Back of the Napkin by Dan Rome. So what I've shared today is my intellectual properties. These are my ideas about how you sell. Dan Rome talks about many other things around how to draw pictures to get messages across. So he's written a number of books. The first one, which is a canonical book that most people refer to, is this one here called The Back of the Napkin. So if you like this idea, then you want to take it further, then I'd recommend getting that book. Other comments or questions? Philippe says, now that I know the sketches are fine, I'll do more of them. It's my business. Absolutely, Philippe, in design, it's a perfect fit for you. But I really think it's a really good fit for everybody. So you can think of somebody like me, who comes from an engineering background, where you think, no, I want to make everything precise and accurate. It's a perfect fit for me as well, because it looks so different. Sorry, it's a perfect fit for an engineer, because it looks so different from what an engineer might otherwise do, to be able to quickly pull out a bit of paper and or show a client a solution to their problem straight away. So please try it. Please put it into action. This is one of the things that will help position you differently, and especially because people expect more from the people they buy from now, this will help build your authority and help you get potential clients across the line. Just to finish up, remember, if you'd like a copy of my workbook, Crafting Magnetic Messages, then complete the exit survey that you'll get at the end of this webinar. And that's it for today. Okay, so last questions and comments. Let me just read out if people have got questions. Okay, so quite a few thank yous and a couple of wows, so thank you for that. I'd love you to engage with me if you want to. If you're interested in my keynote speaking, then definitely go to gihanspeaks.com and find out more about that. You can also engage with me directly. Just email me. I'm happy to answer any email questions about anything we talked about in the webinar today. So thanks everyone. Good luck with your diagrams and with your sketches, and good luck with your selling as well. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.